Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show today. Dennis Gaither is with us. Welcome, Dennis.
Hi there. Hi, Cornelia. Hi, everybody.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. I'm loving summer in the Pacific Northwest.
Is it here?
Well, it's trying. It's trying. Sometimes it's the Pacific Northwest, but it's beautiful today.
It is beautiful today.
And,
It's
and
that moment to moment,
other
right?
days were the rainy kind of beautiful, so it's all right.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited about the topic for the show today. I want to let the audience know that we're welcoming them to call in if they want to talk to you, if they have any questions about anything. And I want to just give out the number at 1-800-930-2819. Feel free to call us up. We're going to have the topic we're going to talk about today is what we all want. Dennis, you always give us what we want, don't you?
I am pleased, yes.
You're here to please, yes. That's wonderful. So I want the peace of God.
I want the peace of God. We all do, actually, and that's one of the themes of our just a little our work today here is just that we all actually do want that. And so just by way of introduction, I'm going to just say that this conversation today is from a workbook lesson in A Course in Miracles called I Want the Peace of God. And it points toward not only our highest aspiration, our deepest aspiration, but our power of choosing as well. I'm going to give you a little bit of background. So first, a little bit about my own journey with A Course in Miracles. The Course in Miracles is basically, it's a channel text that was received by two clinical psychologists in the mid-1960s over a period of about 7 years. They actually had a momentous moment of joining in shared purpose. They were in a very stressful interpersonal situation in the Columbia University Medical Center. And at one point, Bill Thetford, one of the co-scribes of the course, had a kind of a moment where he was frustrated with all the infighting in his department in between he and his co-therapist, Helen Schuckman. They were both co-workers. And he said, there must be a better way, meaning there must be a better way to have relationships. And he anticipated a somewhat rejecting response from Helen, but to his surprise, she said, you're right, and I'll help you find it. And the significance of that is that they joined in a shared purpose. There's a whole story about how the course then came through primarily Helen, but with Bill's assistance was typed into a manuscript. It's quite a story of many synchronicities, which I'm not going to spend too much time with at this point. But that one part there is actually important because this lesson really emphasizes that idea of joining.
Yeah, I love that you brought this out because we talked about this before, having a shared vision, how important it is. And even in the introduction, you talked about the shared vision is two minds with one intent become so strong that they will become the will of God.
That what they will becomes the will of God. Yes,
Yeah.
because they're joined, they're the same. I'll say a little bit about my own journey just briefly also, is that I encountered the course probably about 1990, 91, indulging in an addiction, which is used bookstores. And I found this blue book that caught my attention, said A Course in Miracles. I didn't really know what it was. I brought it home, started to read it, and was pretty turned off, actually. I found it pretty daunting. The nonlinear way that it's written frustrated my linear mind. I didn't like some of the verbs, some of the terminology. So the miracle was that it didn't get thrown away when I got rid of most of the things I owned and left my apartment in San Francisco and lived in a tent at a Sufi community. But over a period of a couple of years of being here and there, finding myself in Seattle, and encountering several people who had transformative experiences with the workbook lessons, I decided to give them a try. And I have a particular fondness for those lessons. that was really my introduction. I skipped the text and did the lessons first. And 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 certainly there was a lot of resistance. What the course says, there's these ideas, you may find them startling, but just apply them in your life. And I started to do that with some resistance and reluctance, and not necessarily always consistently, but I did. And somewhere around 6 months, I managed to get as far as lesson 30 and started to realize that something had shifted. Something had shifted inside, and it was always in the area of relationships. And A Course in Miracles is a course in relationships, actually. It doesn't bill itself as that, but it is about healing our relationships. And it was really a revelation to me that I could come to a place of quiet inside, a place of willingness inside, and bring my perception of whatever the situation was, and that there really was a voice inside that would show me a different way. That's the voice inside that the Course calls by a number of names: Self with capital S, the Comforter, the Healer, the Holy Spirit, the Christ Presence. It calls it by various synonyms. So at that point, then I really, really got very into those lessons. And I was really awestruck by them as I went through the first time. I started to realize that there is an awesome intelligence behind these, behind the way that they are constructed, the way they sequence, the depth of them, the way in which they reach a deeper place inside it. In some ways, by confounding our intellectual processes, by some ways, by confounding that, it kind of gets beyond it. It's quite amazing, actually. I didn't appreciate that initially, but as I went further along with that, and it became really a practice, and I realized during that first time, I bet I'm only getting maybe 10% of what's here to get. I'm going to keep doing this. That was 20 years ago. I'm still doing it. So I don't do them necessarily in the same way, and sometimes I've done them in a group, or sometimes I've done them alone, or sometimes with a study buddy, which is my favorite way to do it. So, but it's been quite a journey. And I would love to go through all 365 lessons with everybody today, but that is not possible. But instead, I want to just pick out one in particular, and that's lesson 185, which has the theme of I want the peace of God.
Before you do that, I just want to also ask you a question. So
Cool.
Everything you've been talking about with your practice, with your study, with the Course in Miracles, we want to let the audience know that you've also been facilitating meetings at your house.
And yeah.
Every week, year after year, offering people to come to your home, to learn about the Course in Miracles, to study it together. And tell us about that a little bit before we go into that.
Okay. Yeah, well, I can tell you, basically I've been facilitating a gathering at my home in one form or another for over 20 years now. And it really started out as just simply something to facilitate my own learning. Let's get some friends together to understand this thing. And it still is that, actually. I'm still a student.
Yeah.
I'm happy to share whatever it is I may know and whatever it is I can share. But in the sharing of it, I learn more. Learning is not necessarily, it's not about just an intellectual learning, though there is that. It's more of a deepening experience. And that's what I really appreciate about the Course, is just that the experience of it, the applying it in my life, and witnessing the blossoming that happens when people do that. I've also taught workshops with special themes on forgiveness. Forgiveness is probably a central Course practice. It's a much deeper level of forgiveness than anything that the world understands. And we've done some talks about that, but basically it's really an inverting our whole frame of reference to really seeing the innocence underneath whatever action may have been taken. And it's really about healing our own deep sense of loss, our own deep sense of unworthiness in our own minds that we may see projected out.
Yeah, definitely. Forgiveness is something that it's like a lot of people are needing it right now in the state of the world. It's definitely.
Well, absolutely. We did a couple months ago a talk on the wheel of projection, which is the forgiveness is the way out of the wheel of projection.
I think that was in December or January, but it was fantastic. We should definitely, revisit that at some point.
We can revisit it, but this is a little different thing for right now. And
so before we do that, let's take a break, and when we come back, you can take us straight into the one part, and that is the peace of God.
Cool.
So yeah, and everybody, if you all want to call in, 1-800-930-2819. You can also talk to us and leave your comments on Transformation Talk Radio Facebook page. That's where people like to hang out too. So you can put your messages there or questions. And we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Kornelia Stephanie, and I'm with Dennis Gaither, my co-host. And we're here talking today about I Want the Peace of God. All right, Dennis, take us into it.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Kornelia. Mm-hmm. So this is from lesson 185, I want the peace of God. And it starts off making a pretty bold statement here. It says, to say these words, I want the peace of God, is nothing. But to mean these words is everything. If you could but mean them for just an instant, there would be no further possible sorrow, no sorrow possible for you in any form, in any place or time. Heaven would be completely given back to full awareness, memory of God entirely restored, the resurrection of all creation fully recognized. Makes a bold statement here. And by the way, when the Course in Miracles talks about heaven, it's not a place you go when you die. It's a state of awareness that's your real truth. And the resurrection isn't about somebody's body coming back from the dead. It's our awakening to our real life. So the words have different meanings. But it continues on. No one can mean these words and not be healed. He cannot play with dreams, nor think himself as a dream. He cannot make a hell and think it real. He wants the peace of God, and it is given him, for it's all he wants, and that's all he will receive. Many have said these words, but few indeed have meant them. You've but to look upon the world and see around you how very few they are. The world would be completely changed should any two agree these words express the only thing they want. So it's taking this idea a little bit deeper, that it's not just saying I want the peace of God, but it's saying this is all I want. And it's about recognizing when we choose, and we'll develop this in a really profound way of really noticing what we're choosing in any given moment. That peace of God is actually our natural birthright. It's there all the time. And when we're not experiencing it, we're actually making another choice. Yeah, and there's a couple lines here. The world would be completely changed should any two agree these words express the only thing they want. And the next paragraph begins, two minds with one intent become so strong that what they will becomes the will of God. It's a key vehicle in the Course, is a transforming of our relationships. And the Course talks a lot about the way we usually experience relationships. It calls them special relationships, which is I am me, separate individual here. The other person is the you, separate individual over here, and we have different needs, different agendas. And sometimes we can kind of make something kind of mesh, but ultimately that state of separation carries with it a sense of lack because we're not aligned with our source. And the healing of that is a process that the Course calls the holy relationship, which begins when two seemingly separate minds can share a single purpose, a single intent. So this is a theme that's developed through about 5 chapters of the Course, about two minds with one intent become so strong that what they will becomes the will of God, because something else enters it. And to me, if what needs healing is our sense of separation, joining is going to be the healing in some way. But to realize our true joining coming from this place of I'm a Dennis, you're a Kornelia, everybody's an individual, to our true joining is too big of a leap. So it's a process. In which but that joining and shared purpose sets that in form. And then it talks a little bit more about how, what I just sort of talked to, it talked about the hero of the dream, which is our personality, our body. It's going to be different. My hero is me, your hero is you, John's hero is John's, and so each is going to be a little bit different. They're going to experience the world a little bit different. They're going to have a little different agendas. Coming down to the next paragraph. Yet compromise alone a dream can bring. Sometimes it takes the form of union, but only the form. We can make a little alliance here based on some compromised agenda here, but it's always going to be an alliance against something else. It's not going to be a true joining. The meaning must escape the dream. A dream is the illusion that we are here, that we're separate. For compromising is the goal of dreaming. Minds cannot unite in dreams, they rarely bargain. And what bargain can give them peace of God? Illusions came to take his place. So we have chosen essentially this dream of separation, and it takes the place of our real peace in God. It's worth talking a little bit more about what this is saying about compromise here, because one might superficially interpret that as meaning the Course says, well, we shouldn't ever compromise. But that's actually not not true. That at the level of form, where we each are running around in our own individual experiences, our own personalities, our own identities, where there's basically a sense of not enoughness because we're not in touch with the fullness of our source in that mind state. Give and take and compromise is sort of a part of life at that level. And I think it's an essential part of life, of functioning in that way. The compromise that this is talking about is not compromising on what our deepest need is, what our deepest purpose is, what our deepest yearning is. We want the peace of God. We don't want, oh Lord, would you buy me a Mercedes Benz? We don't want the Mercedes Benz. We want the peace of God. And that's what it's talking about, not compromising. And we actually make those compromises all the time, but we do it unconsciously. And so part of that is to bring that awareness that we do that, is to notice our choosing. Here's the interesting, what I note, and it makes a certain sense, is that if I'm clear about what it is that I really want, I want the peace of God, it actually makes compromising at the level of things a lot easier because I simply don't have as much investment in them. If to make a trivial example, if one person thinks the toilet paper roll goes this way and the other one thinks it goes this way, if we see its unimportance, it's like whatever. It's easy to come up with some solution, but if I have an investment, it's got to be this way, then it's not. So there's a deep level of being really uncompromising with our awakening, our process of awakening, and kind of holding the other little gives and takes in the world, maybe more lightly. I'll continue on. So to mean you want the peace of God is to renounce all dreams. For no one means these words who wants illusions, and therefore seeks the means which bring illusions. So the illusions would be, I think that I need this, I think I need that for my true salvation, for my security, all those things that I think I need, and nothing like moving or having a cataclysm to kind of help us I guess I didn't really need that thing. But usually there's a kind of a pain that goes with that renouncing. But until we realize that in so doing, there's something deeper. The peace of God is there. So he's looked on all the dreams, the illusions, the goals, the things, and found them wanting. And it's one of the things I've noticed that paths like this, they tend to attract people after they've, a little bit later in life, after they had a few decades of experience under their belts. For the most part, there are exceptions. But we've all tried a lot of things. We've pursued a lot of things and found that in some way they didn't really fulfill the longing of the heart. But now he seeks to go beyond them, recognizing that another dream would offer nothing more than all the others. Dreams are one to him, and he's learned their only difference is one of form, for one will bring the same despair and misery as do the rest. And so that thought of us in our own mind that wants to keep us in a place of separation, that wants to keep me in a place of separation, will say, well, but there's this one more. There's this one more. Why don't you try that one? It's always there. That carrot is always waved in front of us. And it's not that it's wrong to pursue that, uh, but it's the attachment to it will keep us from realizing our deepest desire, our deepest longing.
You know what just flashed in front of me? I mean, it's really simple. It's really
Mhm.
simple. And it's been like this from the beginning of time. I mean, what flashed is the fruit, the tree in the
Mhm.
Garden of Eden.
Oh, the Garden of Eden, yeah,
Yeah, it's very simple. It's, that because you said it's constantly, continuously dangling in front of us. It's
absolutely.
it's always, but when you know your core truth, when you know that's what you want is your peace with God. That's what
Mhm.
you want. And then live that accordingly no matter what, right? And that's what you're talking about, is not to compromise that no matter what, that you're always making the choice in the name of God, in the name of what you want, in the name of the truth, because there is no separation.
Mhm. Beautiful, yes. And it's also it's not about denying oneself. It's not about necessarily living the life of the ascetic and denying things. Oh, I think I really need that. I'm just gonna. It's about letting go of the attachment around it.
Hmm.
And and what happens is that we just simply don't value things in the same way. It's
Hmm.
not about letting go of something that I'm really valuing. It's about simply kind of letting go of, I just don't value it in the same way. It's like the kids' toys that I used to play with don't interest me anymore. And here's one of my favorite lines, which the mind which means all at once at peace must join with other minds, for that is how peace is obtained. So we actually go together. We're actually interconnected. This isn't just a Dennis journey. It's not just a Cornelia journey. It's not just anybody's journey. We're actually doing this together. Because if the truth of who we are is that we are joined, attempting a solo journey is kind of doing it the hard way. Um, and when the wish for peace is genuine, the means for finding it is given. It's kind of a promise. They're in a form which each mind that seeks for it in honesty can understand. Whatever form the lesson takes is planned for him in such a way he cannot mistake it if his asking is sincere. But if he asks without sincerity, there's no form in which the lesson will meet with acceptance and be truly learned. So this is kind of saying that if we truly ask, we will be shown a way. Um, and it's really about following those little inner prompts in little moment to moment and trusting more and more and being shown a way to the peace of God. And it might be being shown what's keeping me not at peace. It might be actually activating some of those things that are not keeping me at peace, especially in relationship context. That's pretty much guaranteed to be part of it. But if one can shift, if I can shift my mindset to not seeing that as necessarily a bad thing, but is kind of stepping back. Okay, I'm being shown the way
Yep.
to the peace of God here. By it's not like the peace of God is some attainment I have to get to. It's actually something that's already there, but that I put veils in front of, and it's sort of helping me release the veils and just being present with whatever's naturally there.
I love that. And I also invite us to really think about when you say, I want the peace of God, define what define to the person, each person, define what does that mean to them, the peace of God. Like, what is the definition for each person, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, those can be kind of like wayposts along the way, but actually, what in other places it kind of talks about that that piece is kind of beyond our human experience. It's beyond our human understanding. So it's not conceptualizable, but it can be experienced, and it's kind of like we get little glimpses. With that's we get there's little moments of letting go of something that was in the way. We get just a little heart opening, a little glimpse there, and that's the tantalizing little thing that says, I just got a little glimpse of something. I want to keep coming back to that. And it's by following that experience of the heart, that we come to a knowing that is not an intellectual knowing. I don't know that I would be able, I can only describe what I experience, which is these little glimpses where there's a heart opening and suddenly there's a sense of I can only call it peace or love.
Yeah.
The path is kind of made up of lots of those.
Yeah. And that's why that's where it's found. It's found in that, in those special awarenesses and those special connections and those special moments where that peace, when the being realizes it's at one with God, there's no separation and it is the same. And all of a sudden you have that peace and that realization, and that is like so all encompassing that it's undeniable, but it's not something that you can, like you said, intellectualize, because it's a feeling.
Right. It's a feeling. And actually, my trying to create a concept around it actually can get in the way, because I can try to then create a caricature of it that I think it is. And it's really better just to let go of that. In fact, that's one of the things that I can say, okay, I'm choosing this idea instead of the real peace of God.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. I'm seeing prompts here that we're about to have a break. Are we doing a break here, or are we going to continue for now? You can tell me what we're doing before I launch into this next little part here.
Okay, well, let's just go to break. Let's take a break and let's give out the phone number again to everyone. Thanks for listening and tuning in. At 1-800-930-2819, you can give us a call and speak with Dennis and ask him any questions that you want to ask about the topic today. We're going to take a break, or check us out on the Transformation Talk Radio Facebook page, and we'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. Dennis and I were talking about the light in his room, how light it is. We were talking about the natural sunlight that's coming in. So let's get back into it, Dennis. Wonderful conversation. The peace of God. I want the peace of God, and I mean it. And so take us into the part.
I can hear that, Kornelia.
Oh, yeah.
You mean it. We mean it.
I mean it.
Well, at a certain level, we all mean it. So I'm going to talk next. This next little segment here is about a practice, because these lessons, they're not just a lesson like you might read in school. They're actually practices. You use the idea for the day. In this case, I want the peace of God, but then you apply it in your inner life in some way. And they're really mindfulness-based practices, because they invite you to really explore your inner life here. And I'm going to read the paragraph describing the practice, and maybe if we have a little time at the end, Kornelia and I can actually do that practice. But I'll read the paragraph here, though. So today, devote your practice periods to careful searching of your mind to find the dreams you cherish still. Or what do you ask for in your heart? Forget the words you use in making your requests. Consider but what you believe will comfort you and bring you happiness. There's a lot of self-honesty required in these practices. But be you not dismayed by lingering illusions, for their form is not what matters now. Don't worry about it if you've got them, it's okay. Let not some dreams be more acceptable, reserving shame and secrecy for others. They are one. And being one, the question should be asked of all of them: is this what I would have in place of heaven and the peace of God? It continues, this is the choice you make. Be not deceived that it's otherwise. No compromise is possible in this. You choose God's peace, or you've asked for dreams, and dreams will come as you requested them. Yet will God's peace come just as certainly, and to remain with you forever. It will not be gone with every twist and turning of the road, to reappear unrecognized in forms which shift and change with every step you take. So this is a practice. It's a practice of really just going inside. And you start with the idea, I want the peace of God. And then you just allow to come into your awareness all of those things that we think give safety and comfort. And it includes not only things, but also attitudes I found that in my own working with this, certain attitudes of it has to be this way, um, or or maybe little thoughts of resentment or grievance or judgment. I found that those were little attitudes that in some way protected some self-concept that I had, but it was keeping away the peace of God. But I did find as I would do this practice, and it's not just so much I want the peace of God, I want the peace of God, but it's allowing all the little shadows, the veils, to come into awareness.
Yeah.
Because then they can be released. Then we can kind of say, okay, I want to make another choice. And it isn't saying, there's such a kindness to this. It doesn't say, well, now get rid of them. Don't, or judge yourself because it's not saying that. It just says, ask yourself the question with each one at a time. Is this what I would have in place of heaven and the peace of God? So it's really about just really becoming really self-aware of the choices that we make moment to moment to moment, because those little choices of what filter we're looking through, the ego's filter or the spirit's filter, are really making for us the world that we see ourselves as in, and it makes really our sense of who we think we are too. We don't see ourselves as the extension of God in those moments that we are creating a dream of who we are. We see ourselves as a personality that is subject to all of the frailties of that. So this is a wonderful opportunity doing this kind of practice. And it's just one of 300. It's one of my 365 favorite ones here.
Wow. You have 365 favorites?
365 lessons.
Yeah.
Some of them I liked more than others initially, but I came to just love them all because they're like little facets of a diamond. There's a similar fire at the core of each diamond, but you look through it, it's all the different facets that give it its beauty.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll continue here a little bit further. You want the peace of God, and so do all who seem to seek for dreams. For them as well as for yourself, you ask but this when you make this request with deep sincerity. So the deep sincerity is, even if it's just in a moment of deep sincerity, and maybe in a different moment I'll think I want something else, and then I come back to that moment of deep sincerity. For thus you reach to what they really want and join your own intent and what they seek above all things, perhaps unknown to them, but sure to you. Now, I would have to say, a number of times that I personally have been in a state of not knowing what it was, pursuing something, some goal, got to get to a certain place on time, and someone else's peace actually influenced a shift for me. I could kind of a number of stories of that, and probably I've also had the same influence on others. Our peace, when we are connected with it, does affect other people. And so we are, on a deep level, we're interconnected, and our own healing is others' healing, and others' healing is ours as well. So we're joined here. And so this is kind of taking us, we've been going deeper, but now the deep depth is going broader as well. It includes all of us together. And we don't necessarily have to know exactly how that plays out. We just trust that my own healing of the sense of separation, coming to the peace of God, does have an effect in the world in ways I may not understand or witnessed. Or there actually may be direct experiences where someone comes into our own experience that we can be helpful to. Or we're brought to someone else that can be helpful to us. It works every way here. And would you not avail yourself of it by sharing it? It is by sharing it that we realize we have it to share. When we withhold it, we keep it for ourselves. We're not aware of what we've got. But as we're sharing it, then it's like we know we've got it. No one who truly seeks the peace of God can fail to find it, for he merely asks that he deceive himself no longer by denying to himself what is God's will. Who can remain unsatisfied? Who asks for what he has already? Who could be unanswered who requests an answer which is his to give? The peace of God is yours. So it's like reassuring. It's already there. This is not an attainment. It's just a recognition. For you was peace created, given you by its creator, and established as his own eternal gift. How can you fail when you've been asked for what he wills for you? This evokes for me a sense of gratitude. This is all just given as a gift. I don't have to earn it. We don't have to earn it. It's just given as a gift. And no one can lose and everyone must gain whenever any gift of God has been requested and received by anyone. God gives but to unite. To take away is meaningless to him. And when it is meaningless to you, you can be sure you share one will with him and he with you. It is this one intent we seek today, uniting our desires with the need of every heart, the call of every mind, the hope that lies beyond despair, the love attack would hide. Brotherhood that hate has sought to sever, but which still remains as God created it. With help like this beside us, can we fail today as we request the peace that God has given us? So it comes down to a joyful sharing of the peace of God. So just revisiting that lesson gives me just such a wonderful sense. And I've actually been focusing on it for the past several days as just as a way of just really kind of letting myself settle into this. So maybe if you would like, we could actually do this practice together. We could actually just we could do maybe a 1-minute version, maybe 2 minutes. We have a little bit of time, maybe 2 minutes, we could do that. But for people doing this on their own, I would suggest 10, 15 minutes longer. The longer you can do it, the deeper the experience. And basically what it is just simply starting with the idea for the day. I want the peace of God. And kind of taking in the felt sense of that. And then being willing to just simply be shown any of those little places where there's something that might get in the way of that. And and that might be in the way of things that I think I need, or it might be attitudes that I sort of am attached to. And being willing to be surprised, being willing to be shown something. Maybe I didn't even know this was there. So I'm going to be quiet for about a minute here, and let's just see whatever comes up in that tiny little bit of time here. And we can do this with a shared purpose of doing this together for this next minute or so.
Sounds good.
Okay. Okay. Feels really nice here. I'll say what I noticed, and what I got actually was a certain attitude of I have to do this right. I have to get it right. There's a right way and a wrong way. But as I settled into the piece, I just ask, okay, what might be in the way here? And there is a certain doing these kind of things like we're doing right now. There's a little bit of performance anxiety there if I have to do it right. Mm-hmm. And so as I just kind of just acknowledged that and started to let it go, I noticed that my left shoulder softened. I've been having some troubles in this shoulder, and I noticed it just softened. Mm. So I noticed a shift in the body as well. And then there's a little bit more kind of a resonance here.
Mhm.
That was what I noticed here.
Well, thank you for sharing that. When you're talking about performance anxiety, the thought that came to me was, uh, we're meditating live on the radio. So it's like, okay, so people are tuning in and we're quiet and we're
Right.
meditating, and yeah, just so there was that, and just letting it go, coming back to I want the peace of God, and just letting it go. And so relaxing more into that. And I just felt really at one and relaxed. And truly, I feel, with this shared vision, just even the intent and the vision of coming together to do this show, to talk about this, and always to bring these amazing um, wisdom teachings so that we can make the world a better place and serve
Mm.
and raise the vibration. And so that makes me feel good, and it makes me feel like we are contributing to our collective peace, that
We
we
are doing.
so it just feels very good, Dennis.
Yeah. So I notice as I just allowed that process to unfold, and there's a little bit more willingness to noticing the attachment to my mind thinks I know what right is here.
Yeah,
So there's a little bit more openness to, okay, just show me how this could unfold. So I'm
yeah.
just in this little 1 minute little thing we did but yeah, I'm aware that for somebody tuning in, watching this, watching two people with their eyes closed, not saying anything is probably not the best spectator sport in the world.
This is a talk show. So, but anyway, it's great. It's great because this is something that you can go out and do in your car at
Hmm.
any point in time. It's something that you can invite someone to do and just sit with together and
Hmm.
do it. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful practice, and all the things that we can do in the spare of the moment in a daily practice to bring us into a greater harmony and greater peace with God, with the universe, with source. It's so it's a beautiful practice. Thank you for bringing that today.
Yeah. I'll say just one more is that, this was lesson 185. We've sort of pulled the lesson out of context.
Yes, you did.
And there is a sequencing of a progressively deeper and deeper kind of practice that the previous 184 lessons have been leading up to.
Uh,
And I think that was what really impressed me 20 years ago. It's like, there's an amazing intelligence here. So I want to kind of, yes, this is a wonderful practice. And the whole workbook is an amazing practice. I've lost track of how many times I've done it. And each time is a completely different experience because, I'm different each time. It's
yeah.
totally transformative. It's transformed my sense of relationships, transformed my sense of one of the biggest gifts, I think, is just increasing awareness of that abiding inner presence.
Mhm.
Uh, that that there's a there's that little presence inside that will show me a different way if I'm willing to let my way of seeing go. In other words, let go of my story, my interpretation, the meaning I'm giving it. There's and that really all I have to do is bring the willingness. Sometimes that's difficult. I can make it seem difficult because I'm kind of identified with something. The more I'm identified with something, the more challenging it can seem. But over time, I find that it's easier not to be quite so identified with that. But I still have my hooks.
Yeah.
Still,
Well, we're
there's
still here.
still there.
We're still here on
There's
it.
no ceiling. There's
Yeah.
no ceiling
It's
to
no.
it.
Yeah, that's great.
There's no ceiling. It just will. We just keep doing it. Um, and but there are a lot of moments of joy associated with it, and a lot of moments of peace.
That's wonderful. So, Dennis, we should ask the audience what they would like to, if there's topics that they would like you to talk about,
Mhm.
because maybe some people have particular things that they would like to hear more about. And so you can certainly, let us know. You can look for Dennis Gaither on Facebook. His Facebook Messenger is always there, right? That's where people can get in contact with you. You can also contact me at radio@korneliastephanie.com, and always check us out on the Transformation Talk Radio Facebook page. But we love the teachings that you bring because they're so timely, and they're always beautiful practice, tools that we can use in our practical reality every day to integrate. And like you said, keep learning,
We keep learning,
keep learning.
keep experiencing. So it's a joy to be able to share this because it just brings a certain, I get to witness in myself and in others a certain blossoming
Mhm.
that happens, and it's very moving to me personally. It's become sort of the thing that I appreciate, and it's not like I have to make that happen. But it just happens, and I don't think it happens necessarily that I'm doing it. It's just sort of, I feel like it just happens, and it's like there's kind of a certain awe about it. Um, uh, so yeah, delight. Mhm.